Yeah.
I just think it tastes yummy. So I mean.
Yeah, I've
You're
never
the
tried
best.
it, but I also have like celiac. So
Oh yeah, yeah. You gotta be careful. Yeah.
What kind of monstrosity?
Did you get it, Tracy?
Mom's looking at the computer like a
You're good.
hacker in the 1980s.
Are we
Yeah.
live?
Yeah, you're live on both
And there's
now.
a go
We're live,
button in the
guys.
top corner.
He's still making fun of me for being stupid.
It's not
So
making fun of you for being stupid. I'm just making fun of you.
that's fine.
Dare we
That's
say?
fine. I'm fine with
Tracy, you want to kick this off?
that. Okay. God, I'm so flushed. Okay, so there is no book club. First meeting in person for 4 of us. Yeah.
Yay!
And Doug wishing he was here.
And Doug.
Well, I mean, he's not in the room. He wants to be.
He's back there.
You're here in spirit. That's so
In
nice.
spirits. So,
In spirit.
cheers.
Yeah. Good spirits tonight.
I
Okay,
posted
so
it here.
we are doing The Butcher of Anderson Station tonight.
Nice.
That's what we're doing.
Yup.
Yep.
All like 25 pages of it. Let's get deep into it, baby.
But it's Fred.
Yeah,
So there's much more to it than just
for sure.
the 25 pages.
But still, it is like compared to when we did Leviathan Wakes, there's so much to talk
That's
about.
a juicy one.
Yeah.
Leviathan Wakes, we could have spent hours,
Yeah.
a multitude of hours.
Yeah. What?
Should we just hop into what we want to say about Fred because he's the star of the show?
Yeah, sure.
Who wants to start? Who wants to kick it off?
Not me.
I volunteer you as tribute.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yay! Okay.
Let me see, because I had written a few things down.
Of course you did. You're always so wonderfully prepared.
Well, I think the first thing about Fred is that it's kind of like he's in a rough spot, right? When the book starts out, he's in a bar, just kind of like drinking, wanting to drink his depression away pretty much after everything that he's experienced. And then we just have this encounter with someone putting a bag over his head and like whisking him away. So
Are you trying to say that's not how a good night at the bar ends?
well,
Depends on your definition of a good time, I guess.
depends on what bar you go to, I guess.
Yeah, it's also a good point.
I don't know what is normal for a Belter bar. Maybe that's just like a
Not
warm
trying to
greeting.
kink shame anyone.
Yeah,
but-
exactly.
Indeed.
Welcome to a Belter bar. Have a bag on your.
That's how we kick everyone out at closing time.
Ooh, is someone else joining?
Adrian.
It's Adrian!
Welcome. Oh
I don't
my
know if she can
goodness.
hear us yet. Can you hear us?
Hi. Can you guys hear me at all?
I can barely hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Barely. Okay, hold on. I gotta do some with my 1984 headphones. Okay, how about now?
Much better.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can
Okay,
actually
I
hear
am-
our audio coming through Adrian's computer, I think.
Okay. How about now? Better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Tracy. did
We're
you
about to
wanna
have.
You guys can't hear me,
over
huh?
here and,
You can't hear me?
you know.
Can.
I can't
Okay,
do
she's
that when
fine.
I'm sober. I
Can you hear me
need
at all?
She's
to
fine.
be
She's fine.
fair.
She's fine.
She's always like this.
I walk into
Okay.
walls sober. It's fine.
Okay. I'm just
What do I do?
I'm
We're talking, we just started bringing up Fred
I'm gonna
and
listen on
how
YouTube,
the book starts
just-
out. And we've got Fred meeting with Anderson
Alright.
Dawes. It's not a great
I'm
first
gonna listen on
meeting, I
YouTube
guess.
because I'm in a storage closet at my work.
Yeah.
That's how we roll.
Doug, stop acting like we're not professionals. Just because we're not. It's not fair.
I'm enjoying the show very, very much, Tracy.
Oh, good. Good. That's awesome. Okay,
Fun life.
Fred. Anderson Dawes.
Yeah.
Not the best first meeting, right?
No, not at all.
Unless you're Tracy.
I mean, there's a
right?
woman there too,
Yeah.
like a non-named person working with Anderson who kind of is like holding a gun most of the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can call her Trigger Happy Jade. Because she does have that feel like she's like, just give me a reason.
Trigger happy Trisha.
Trigger Happy
There
Trisha.
you go.
Trish. For short.
Sure.
Okay.
But Fred is a broken man, right? Like this
Oh,
is
yeah.
kind of the beginning. And what I also liked about this is we're going back and forth. So it's not like a linear story. We're kind of going back in time and Fred's re-evaluating and thinking about the whole situation from where his name comes, the Butcher of Anderson Station. So we've got a station full of people who are kind of staging a revolt, I guess, if you will. And then, like, spoiler alert, they had actually, like, not prepared for being stormed by the military whatsoever. So it was just
Yeah.
kind of like this big annihilation.
It's so painful. Like when you read it and you realize that like they were trying to surrender. But I don't think Fred went into it thinking that he was a bad man. Pretty sure he felt quite differently when it was all over.
Yeah.
Well, I think quite the opposite, right? I mean, the story takes a lot of pains to show him as a man committed to duty, but also committed to something of a human side, right? You know, he really cared, and that's what kind of makes the first reveal of him just kind of drinking himself to death or waiting for death to happen, and the very last line of the story, such great bookends, right? Because in this 25 pages, if you will, we get this great kind of arc from a man who his entire career was built on him being committed to duty, but being fair and caring about his people,
Yeah.
about the people he's protecting, about doing the right job, you know, and then to a person who's basically like, I don't care, get into a fight, kill me, I don't, you know, chuck me out of airlock, I really don't care. So it's really interesting how they wrote that. And then to bookend, and I don't mean to keep talking here too much, but the last line of the story really stood out for me because I wasn't sure if it was an intended double meaning, but I took it when I read it as a double meaning. And that was the pair walked out together, leaving Fred on the deck, massaging the agony out of his legs as the feeling started to return. You could take that as the feeling started to return to his legs, or on a deeper level, did he start to care again?
Yeah.
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 Coming
Right.
back to his humanity.
I feel
Right,
like
because of what
there's,
Anderson
like, a
Dawes
really-
offered him. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I was interrupting. I feel like it's a really good portrayal of how people with PTSD after war situations are. My dad's a Vietnam veteran. He did 2 tours, Special Forces. And so, like, I feel like it was impossible not to draw comparisons there because there was definitely some missions that, like, you know, like are still fucking with his head. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of an inescapable thing when you talk about people that have had to follow orders and then later in life dissect that and like question whether those orders were just or not and that they were just doing their job and that whole like separation. And I felt like it was like honestly one of the best portrayals I've seen of that like in a long time. Like I really like I feel like I was really impacted by this story because it was like so close to like what I grew up around.
And to it comes really fast. Like you're only just a few paragraphs into this book and all of that is like right there. Like
Yeah.
you just walk into it and that's like the beginning of the story.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that he's like trying to drown himself in alcohol and that weird, like, you know, like just kind of floating and like not trying to blame himself, but also like not knowing how to feel. I felt like they did a really good job of that. And like how it does like mess with someone's head. Like it's, I don't know. I thought it was brilliant, honestly. Even though it's like a short story, it was like the most like realistic type of portrayal I've seen of someone that's had to be in that situation.
And two, I mean, it's coming from his point of view. So like he's not outright just saying like, oh, like I have PTSD. He's like thinking about all of the stuff that's affected him, and then kind of like we're being shown this, but he's not outright saying it. But like without outright saying it, I think it's very clear. Like they did a good job of just making it like come through without being like, I'm very sad. You know what I mean?
I'm traumatized by what I had to go through. I mean, you don't have to say it, right? And to go back to your stuff about the shortness of the story and what's being told, isn't that the trick with writing? Right? I mean, anybody can sit there with 100,000 words and convey something, but bring that down to, you know, a few hundred words. Can you still convey the same thing without just saying it? And that's kind of the brilliance of the writing here. And then to go back to your last book club, when we were talking about Leviathan Wakes, right? We had this idea about, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment here. Name of the detective.
Miller.
About how Miller is also showing signs of either depression or PTSD or a little combination of the both, right? And you never come out and say it, and no one ever has to sit there and say like, he's crazy. But the inner dialogue, the hallucinations, all this kind of stuff just paints a picture for the reader, to where if you're at all familiar with this kind of thing, you're like, this guy's got something going on. And you had the same thing in this short story, right? You have like this whole he's not right. So it's brilliant writing.
Yeah, you can really feel the guilt.
But also that like way that he thinks about it, like the way that he like, you can tell like his justifications, him saying he has no regrets and all of that stuff. I feel like the reason why I felt it was so accurate is just because it's not like something that just goes away after a couple of years. It's something that you sit with and you think about for a lifetime. And the fact that like we're catching up to him like after, you know. And then I also love that Anderson Dawes offers him something to do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
it's almost
it's not like he never comes right out and says like, this is the way that you make up for this shit. Like, but he's like basically, but it's implied.
Yeah. And it's also too like, it's like kind of that question mark at the end, like, oh wait, is there a redemption for Fred at the end here? Is Fred gonna get like this kind of like full circle where he can come back and kind of do something for the good? Which I mean, coming to this book after Leviathan Wakes, it's like, like you see him kind of thrust into this position where he does kind of seem like a good guy. He's introduced in a mysterious way, so you're not quite sure, like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? But he's pretty level-headed, and like almost everything that he goes through with everyone from the Rocinante crew. But if we go back to The Butcher of Anderson Station, I really loved how this ending happens between him and Anderson Dawes, because is there redemption there? Possibly, ... And then I really liked how Anderson Dawes kind of like ends things, and he's like, we don't waste resources in the belt. Like you are something that is needed, and you're a colonel and you have experience, and if you don't want to die, you know, and drink your life away, like you've got an option here. And what good is it going to do to just kind of like drown your sorrows in a bottle? Because that's not going to make the pain that you're feeling about this father and his little girl like go away. and like we need people like you. So it's like the weirdest like job.
So what does that say about Anderson Dawes' personality
Like
and
job
what he's
meeting
going to
kind
do?
of like, oh, okay, like you're hired, Fred.
I think with Anderson Dawes, like what that says about his personality is like he's clearly a type of person that evaluates like what people's assets are and like what they can bring to the table, and like seeing that this man is clearly struggling, and I mean like I know how to use that to the means that I have.
Yeah.
It makes him a
So
little
I don't think
Machiavellian, doesn't it?
what?
Does makes him a little Machiavellian, doesn't it? It's like he doesn't really care about mental health issues. He cares about here's something I can use to
Absolutely.
meet
Oh,
my end, right?
for sure. He's like, I have a weapon here.
Yeah.
This man's mind is a weapon. This guy knows everything in and out as far as military strategy goes. The belt has never had those resources.
Yeah.
Ever. And like, so here you go. You have like, I mean, like, I don't know if West Point trained a type of thing, like to be a colonel, like you have to move up so many ranks, you know what I mean? And be like, okay, like you are clearly brilliant and you know how to strategize. So, and you are disenfranchised by the people that were giving you these orders.
Yeah.
So let me just,
Yeah.
like, we need that because we don't have that.
And Fred has the knowledge of how the UNN military works.
Yeah.
So not only is he brilliant, but he's also like been on the other side. So like who better to have like come work for you than someone who knows the ins and outs of someone who's like a group of people that are your potential enemies, I guess. I mean, they're not warring right now, but that's kind of how the whole story is set up, to where everyone has felt for so long that war is just on the brink. At any moment it could happen. So like him pulling Anderson pulling Fred Johnson to him is like, okay, not only is he a good like soldier, but he's kind of an inside guy.
Yeah,
So-
like he's like, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please go.
Okay, he's like an inside guy for like what could be half of a war in the future. Like he knows the inside and out of the UNN fleets and whatnot. And so, yeah, 100%, he is in Anderson Dawes' mind. He is just a weapon to get to what he needs next, and to further establish the belt and the OPA as a whole as like this thing. Like it feels like Fred is one of the key points of what makes the OPA, especially like as you go on, like in Leviathan Wakes, it feels like he is like, whoa, like Anderson Dawes is a character, but I feel like this book got some really great like background on who he is on a person. I enjoyed that.
Very compelling character, Anderson Dawes.
Yeah.
I wish he had his own novella.
So it brings up an interesting point, right? Or an interesting question. So Anderson Dawes is a man who sees material, assets, whatever, and sees a need, right? And he will do whatever it takes to fill it. We don't really care about anything else. Does this remind us of any other character in the books that we've been introduced to so far? Not just Leviathan Wakes, but all the books. For example, a certain shadow leader slash forward leader later in the book, spoiler alert, on Earth for the UN.
Well, I would talk about it, but I can't without spoiler.
Are we in a no spoiler zone here? Or?
Yeah, this is just for the Butcher of
Butcher
Anderson Station and Leviathan Wakes.
Right. But so it's something to think about for future. I mean, do we have a
yeah.
Like to
are
draw
they cut
those
from the same cloth? Would be the non-spoiler way of asking it, right?
Yeah.
Do we see others of the same?
Yeah.
The same kind of
And like what leaders emerge that have those qualities where they are able to see what resources they have in people.
Yeah.
What resources they have.
And is that a good thing?
I mean, it's kind of part of the role.
Yeah.
Like to be a good leader, you have to put your assets to work.
But you kind of.
But also, like, where's there is the moral line of like, whereas Fred's leaders did not have that moral compass.
Right.
That or the ethics to be in that position. But like, I feel like something to look out for the future leaders in this book series is who does.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about somebody who we've already met leadership wise. What about Holden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he similar? Is he polar opposite? What would you think?
Well, I think Holden, okay, here's the thing. Everyone that is in like these leadership roles, I mean, everyone's own morality is subjective to themselves. Like everyone thinks to an extent, like these are my morals, right? Like everyone has their own set of morals and that decides like how they go about doing things. And with like Holden, he absolutely believes that everything he does is like for the good, right? Like he personally, I think, believes that he's making the right decisions until maybe it's pointed out to him like, hey, look, you know, like you did this thing. These are the ramifications. And he has to sit on that where he's like, oh, like, well. And it doesn't always affect him either because he goes on and makes the same mistake a couple of times. But someone like Anderson Dawes, I mean, like you said, he is kind of this shadowy figure. And I think he's really compelling. Like, I love him as a character. And I might just be like also influenced by the TV show because I love the actor who plays Anderson Dawes. Like, he's great. Great.
He's perfect.
Do you guys think, okay, this is just kind of like a side question, but I always kind of was like interested on why he's written in the books having like terrible acne and scarring. Do you guys think that this is like a status symbol for him? Because I mean, in the setting, like they have the technology to regrow limbs. Like you can get rid of acne, right? Like if you can regrow an arm. Do you think this is something similar to like the Belter tattoos that cover up the scars? Like they're proud of their scars. Like this is our status. I don't know.
Well, the fact that he's like made himself into a figurehead for the, like, if you were to like put it comparatively to like Earth or whatever, like what we have, like he's like a working class symbol. Like
Right.
He has like, we're the ones that keep getting kicked. We're the ones that keep, you know, or whatever comparison. Like it doesn't have to be that, but you know what I mean? Like it's like maybe it costs a lot to get those scars covered.
Was it?
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
where it's like
this,
instead of like not covering them is like yes, showing like no, screw you. I don't have the disposable income. Like I am
gonna wear it as a flag.
I am content with myself and I don't have that luxury and I'm fighting for people like me that also don't have that luxury.
Was it Leviathan Wakes or was it one of the future books where they're talking about the whole thing with hair? And that's the same idea, right? The people who, you know, that he's intentionally not getting his hair like regrown, but he's got the you know, that, and it was a conscious choice.
Oh, yeah. Jules Pierre Mao.
Yes, thank you.
It's observed that he has the wealth to fix his hairline if he wants
but he doesn't.
But he chooses not to. Yeah.
Right. It's another one of those kind of.
To wear it as like.
That's almost like I'm approachable. Like I'm an everyman's man, you know? Where Anderson Dawes, it's like, yeah, this is me. Like I am who I am. I am of the belt. Like, yeah, status symbols, I guess. Where Jules Pierre Mao might kind of wear it as a mask, maybe.
Oh yeah. Like he's definitely like trying to be like, I can relate to you guys, right? Or, you know.
I don't think Jules Pierre Mao wants to relate to anybody.
No,
okay,
but
let's
I think that
dial it back a little bit before we talk too much about Jules Pierre Mao.
We'll get to Caliban's Wars.
Sorry.
No, I just want to be kind of like careful.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Always.
But is this the kind
how
of
many
thing?
of us have like read the whole series?
I have
Hard to look
not.
back, yeah.
Okay.
But
I don't want to spoil anything.
so do we have two different things here, right? For Jules Pierre Mao, he's a very wealthy person, so this is a choice for different reasons. And then for Anderson Dawes, he's, I mean, I don't know how his wealth compares, or you know, in the belt, he's got influence. We know that, right? So similar means to different ends is what we're looking at here, right? It's like for Anderson Dawes, this is a statement that I reject things that aren't necessary. Regrowing an arm is necessary.
It's his street cred.
Yeah, covering up my acne, that's not necessary out here. That's a waste of resources,
I
right?
feel like there's also something to it though, because like he was talking about like his sister and that whole thing. So maybe it's also a form of penance.
Ooh, good.
Like he doesn't think he deserves to have his face fixed or to have these adjustments because he deep down inside still feels this terrible guilt.
And he can't walk
about
out of
these,
airlock
like,
because he has
fucked up
other sisters,
circumstances.
right? And he had to check their suits as he conveyed it in the story. But this is the way he can punish himself? Maybe.
I mean, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but
I think that's a good point.
I thought that was interesting though, right? Like how the story about his sister and him as a teenager, right? But then, you know, when he's kind of pushed, it's like, well, why are you still here? It's like because I had other sisters and I had a responsibility. And it's like this is the whole forming rapport, right? And then setting him up is like, you have a responsibility, you know, to saying this to Fred, right? It's like you can't go because you have talents that are needed for a lot of other people. You don't have the luxury of just letting yourself get killed in a bar fight.
Yeah.
that.
Right?
Do you think his story about his sister is also like, I don't want to say like a ruse or something, but part of his like interview process? Like, do you think this is something that he tells like everyone that he wants to get like?
I think it's Fred
Or
focused
was
manipulation.
It just, like, in this moment, it was the right thing that Fred needed to hear, so it was useful.
I think this is totally pulling on Fred's strings.
I definitely think that Anderson Dawes just says what he needs to say to get who he needs on his side. Like, and I feel as though you can see that he has like the know-how enough to figure out what will pull at everybody, and that's how he can get Fred so easily like hooked on like that. Like it was in an instant that like he sees that opportunity, you know, like he can really. He feels almost like charismatic in that way. Like not like charisma can be good and bad, but this feels like a very bad way to pull it off, I guess.
I think you're onto something. Like how many I think it's more than once that Fred refers to his fallen like warriors as like my kids. You know what I mean? Like he is strong and pretty ruthless when he needs to be, but he still has that like human connection where he is very caring. And that's probably something that Anderson Dawes picked up on.
But there's also that aspect of Fred where it's, you know, he does the mental calculus, right? And says, my guys, or, you know, the people on this station, all these innocent families that are going to die because we're going to, you know, bust a hole in the side of the station, evacuate all the air, and too bad, so sad. You know, that's how it goes. And maybe Anderson needs that too. It's like Anderson needs more of a Fred, you know, kind of type of personality than he needs a Holden type of personality.
Yeah.
To get what Anderson needs to get done for the OPA, right?
Right. And I feel like Fred is drawn to Holden because he has such a straight, like non-questioning, like moral compass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Where it's like he knows, like he is making these decisions that he in his heart absolutely feels are right and just, and like doesn't necessarily think about the implications of what will happen as the aftermath of it. But in that moment, it is his gut feeling.
I just thought of something.
Whereas like Fred is like I feel like maybe he could have used a Holden in his life, and that's why in the last book he was very much all about recruiting him.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas like Anderson Dawes maybe sees some of his downfalls where Fred is making up for that. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's a reason why these people keep on getting brought together, because they definitely have qualities that the others don't.
Takes was on track to being put in Fred Johnson's place, but that's when Holden like duked out of the military.
Yeah.
He quit before he could be, what did he say? Like, I didn't want to be the boot anymore. Like, I didn't want to be kicking people anymore. Like, I didn't switch sides. I just quit playing, I think is what they say maybe in the TV show. But yeah, like there's a very similar kind of storyline that could have gone for between like Fred and Holden, where Holden just kind of like skipped it and was like, no, where Fred had to find out like the hard way, and there was aftermath there.
Yeah. I think that the comparisons between like Anderson Dawes and Holden is like leadership characters, I suppose. Like Holden is very like it feels like he's got way more attachment to the people on his crew and like the people around him than Anderson Dawes really does. Like Anderson Dawes kind of feels like he sees everybody as like pawns in his game, but like Holden genuinely cares about everybody on the Rocinante. Like through the books, he cares about like some people that he comes across. Like he feels that human connection to people that Anderson Dawes is just like he sees right through the human connection just to see what he needs. Like, are you of use to me? And if you're not, then he'll just kind of be like, it doesn't matter to me.
I don't know if I agree with that. Okay, but like, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I say okay because I'm interested to know what you have to say.
Yeah, no, like I'm also not like criticizing or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's not enough of him to be like shown in the books yet to really like make like that call that he's purely calculative, because I don't think he is. But I'm also like gonna just end my little slide thing there because like this is just backstory, like this is like before we get into like getting to know him better in the future books. So but I also like I refuse to spoil shit. I refuse. But also it's all kind of a blur in my brain, so I'm just being super careful.
I am only coming at this like in terms of like knowing of Anderson Dawes through Leviathan Wakes and Caliban's War, and he's like, I mean,
you can't go into Caliban's War. We haven't.
Yeah, I'm not, and I won't go into Caliban's War. I'm just saying that he seems like somebody who makes those calculations every single time that he is there. It's like the OPA is a thing he needs to be involved, I guess. Like, and he is constantly making those calculations of how the OPA can be involved, I guess. It's like that's how it feels to me,
That's fair.
Do you guys think that this is maybe like, do you think this is Anderson Dawes' plan himself? Like he knew this guy was kind of boozing it up around on one of the Belter stations and was like, okay, we need this guy? Or do you think that there was someone above Anderson Dawes even that was like, we need to get him? Like how high up do you think Anderson Dawes is in the scheme of things?
Yeah, that's a good question because sometimes we think that we know who's at the top of something and it just keeps going higher up. So like, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Jules Pierre was like, hey, Dawes.
Yeah, like
Cody.
There could be so many people that could be taking the forefront on this that it's just like, I don't know. Like, he definitely feels like he's got to be pretty high up there, though. Like, considering the calls that he makes and the moves that he can, like, kind of pull these people in. Like, a recruiter is somebody who recruits people into the thing. Like, that's kind of a higher up. You got to be able to see through people like he does.
Really brutal recruiting system.
I also feel like the OPA, like I feel like that's giving the OPA too much credit too, because I don't think they're as organized as they want to be. I think that there's like they've mentioned even in the first book that there's so many factions.
Yeah.
So it's like there's not like one general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's like it's like you've got your different factions, and so I think Anderson is like higher up in his faction.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's also other people that are like operating at different levels. Like, but they haven't really gone into that, But like it's already implied.
Yeah, like you can definitely see the separation between like different Belter groups and whatnot, and so that's a big thing that I didn't think of on that end. I like that. Cool.
Golden Bow, Free Navy, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
It's
I also kind of love. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just interesting to see the Fred of the short story of the butcher, and as a dynamic, leader, combat leader, right, at the level where he's got a few hundred, men underneath him, and how he cares about it, and he's able to strategize and control this. To then let's go to Leviathan Wakes, right, set in the future, and here he is, widely acknowledged as, a high up in the OPA and the leader of probably one of the major, trading, engineering, belter stations in the system, right? I mean, knowing this background of him, I would never have predicted. I never would have predicted him in the Leviathan Wakes, Fred, to be the one that we're introduced to in the Butcher of Anderson Station. I didn't see that coming, but it's great, and I can see it now that I've read it. But back just reading Leviathan Wakes, I never would have thought this was where he came from. And then how did he get? It's so curious. How did he get from the end of the Butcher of Anderson Station to Leviathan Wakes? Where he's in that position, and he's got his graying hair, and he's no longer the fit military colonel, but he's unquestionably in this position of power in the system, and everyone recognizes it. But he still has this care for, like, he brings the Rocinante crew in, gives them a job, gives them housing, gives them resupplies them, but he obviously, it's like, he's using them as a tool, but he cares about these people, and it's interesting that character trait still pulled through. It's still there for Fred.
Yeah.
Is it possible that when he was brought in, he was just to be used for like the OPA as a way to like legitimize them? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see Fred Johnson going along with all the dealings that people like Anderson Dawes do on the side, because I feel like there's, like we've talked about, kind of a divide between like the moral compasses of both of these characters. So what I'm thinking is, if there were a point where they disagreed like big time on something, is it possible that like that always kind of gets, I don't want to say like smoothed over, but is it possible that as a way for the belt and the OPA to remain legitimate, having a figure like Fred Johnson there in general like does more good than, I mean, just some of their...
I also feel like it's implied, though, that like, because the Earth or whatever like recognizes Fred Johnson and his capabilities, that like they would be comfortable but uncomfortable. So it's kind of like a
double-edged sword almost, and a show.
But then also, like, the reason why they recruited him in the first place wasn't just to be a figurehead. I think that they do value his strategic like capabilities.
So like at first it could have been just like for legitimacy, and then as people get to know him, he is respected and endeared. So like it would be hard to topple someone like that after they're already, have a following or loved even or respected.
And like people know like Fred Johnson's name throughout like the solar system. Like they know him super well. Like the events of what happened on Anderson Station were, like, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they broadcasted? Like, and people ended up watching it happen. And so like everybody knew who did it, who done it, and it was Fred. And everybody kind of like knows who he is through the rest of the books and understands him as the Butcher of Anderson Station. And then like he feels as though he doesn't have to redeem himself in the OPA, and doesn't, like, the Butcher of Anderson Station kind of gets pushed behind him a little bit, but it was still kind of hanging over him. Like you can tell that he still kind of thinks about it.
I feel like that also maybe leads to people taking it more seriously too, though, because so like you did this thing that was an atrocity, like, and that everybody saw. No one knew, like, and like it took him so much prodding to get out of him that he did not hear.
Yeah,
like he was just like, nope, I did the thing, and like was just trying to own it, but like, and like not sell out the fact that like he literally wasn't wired in to hear what was actually happening. Like he never heard that it was families. He never heard that it was like a legitimate reason to be protesting. You know what I mean? Like it was like it was so sad, and like the fact that they were just like, well, you still had to do it. and like him being like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was an atrocity. Like
Yeah.
that would be considered a war crime, like
Absolutely.
on any planet, you know what I mean? But he was following orders.
Yeah.
So it's like that
Yeah.
weird.
Anderson does, I think, was even like, oh, the Nuremberg defense, you know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like the fact that he had done something so horrendous, like, gives his claim in the OPA like a little bit more legitimacy too, because everybody's like, wait, you were just murdering us.
Yeah.
And now you quit this and now you're fighting for us because you realize how fucked up that was.
Yeah.
And I feel like so that like you see everybody that follows Fred is like extremely loyal. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, like do not talk shit about that man. That man is like and it's also like the comeback story that everybody wants to root for a good leader like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like so it's so multifaceted. I don't know. I
got
love that they
goosebumps.
fit all of this into such a small, short story. You
So
know?
speaking of extremely loyal, did you guys? Of course, you read the note, the author note after the short story, right?
Kamina.
And
Do you
what do we
want
think
to
about that
summarize
possibility?
that for people who maybe have not read it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, so
please.
we had the Kara Gee, the actress who played the character Kamina Drummer in the TV adaptation of the book, apparently went to, was it Thai? I think, right, and said,
think so.
she'd read the short story, and she said that the character, the female belter who basically in the short story was willing to just, she was emotionless, she was there, she was ready to pull the trigger, kill Fred if she needed to, right, do what needed to be done. Carrigan proposed, like, well, what if that was drummer? That was a young drummer there, right? That was our first introduction to this character, and it's really interesting because of her relationship with Fred later on in the book series, right? And I was just kind of want to throw that out there. What do you think about that, and what do we think about that possible connection, and how does that make us feel about the character? And then, like you said, Fred Johnson's charisma, and the devotion of people who work for him, who are being led by him to him later on, right? Because here's a character who started off ostensibly the exact opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with the series, like one of the things that drew me to it is that they made very smart choices with like condensing characters or choosing who was in the show and not.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's two characters. I don't know if we've been introduced to the one yet that basically both of them became that character.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like using maybe as a template for the show, like for like what that character, where she's at and stuff like that, like maybe that's part of it, or like that's how they kind of decided to combine her. But you're right. But I've always thought that like they basically merged two characters to create the one. But that's just my.
I think that's right from what
Yeah.
Kaya said online. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just
So,
think
but also like using like what you said, like I never thought about that, like in this short story that's clearly her.
It just kind of speaks to the actress Kara Gee, anyways. For being, is it Kara Gee? That she read this and was like, "Oh, that could be me," and like, is that like her first source of inspiration that she drew from, where this person is kind of like cold seeming at first glance, because when you see Kamina Drummer, like she looks like a stone cold killer. I mean, she's not anyone that you want to like mess with. And just from this little like short story, she doesn't even have
She's a baddie. She's
yes.
Like a 10 out of 10 would like
Yes.
like smash or pass, that is a smash.
All of the above. But I don't know, like I mean, she's an amazing actress as well. So like everything that she does like really enhanced the show. And I mean, it's a shame. Like, I mean, they can't go back in time and like rewrite her and put her in the books, but I'm so glad that we get her on TV.
that was an excellent choice, and what a great lesson about adaptation, written material to television, to video format.
Absolutely.
I mean, these guys can write the book about how to adapt a book series for a television.
Flawless.
Holy
Smart choices.
cow.
They made so many smart choices. Like, I get so mad at adaptations. Like, I have the unfortunate peril of having The Count of Monte Cristo as my favorite book of all time. And I want to punch every single person that has attempted to adapt it in the dick. Like, just repeat, like, forever. Like, eternity dick punching. Like, fuck you. Never gonna do it right. Like, unless you do a limited series with 2 fucking seasons, it's never gonna be okay. Like, I just can't. Like, I could go on for years. I'm gonna shut myself up. But yes. But, like, this is, like, one of the only book series that I'm like, I am not mad. Like, this tracks. They made smart choices. Everything is great. Like, honestly, like, maybe there's things that I would have personally done differently, but, like, who am I to, like, make that decision? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they did a good job.
Yeah.
Sorry, tangent.
I honestly haven't watched the show. Like, I maybe watched a few episodes of the first season, but I have, like, every now and again I pull up clips for where I'm at in the books, and, like, oh my god, it's amazing how well, like, they've done on, like, the way that I picture it in my head and the way seeing it on, like, the screen. It's just, like, it's amazing at some points. Like, I'm just, like, jaw dropping, like, wow, it's so cool.
I think initially I was just like, ooh, I like the fancy, cool space battles. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that much. There wasn't that much to it. And then it kind of merged from that to, ooh, I'm in love with every single female character on this show. Like, and that was it.
Even before I realized I was gay, I was just like, ooh.
The guy who plays Amos, every time that he's in a clip, I'm just like, fuck, dude, what a guy. God damn.
And he's so funny.
Yeah,
and so is Kara Gee. Kara Gee. Oh my god, these people.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the way that they are on screen together, like, you can really feel that they do, like, you can feel like the relationship that the Ross and Nante crew has, because they are working together for a long time, and, like, you can kind of feel it. It's really awesome. How that
Found
plays out.
family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This seriously has been one of the funnest casts.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say this has to be one of the funnest casts to watch interact with each other when you see them do interviews and panels together, because they are obviously all having a great time with each other. It's just so fun. I'm sorry to interrupt, though. Go ahead, please.
I have ADHD. I don't even remember what I was talking about. It's fine. And if I ever interrupt anyone, just be like, shut up, Kendra, just stop. Pause, think.
Remember, squirrel. There we go. You'll be fine.
That's me. That's me.
Tracy, you've been awfully quiet.
I've just been listening.
We're all watching you, though, Tracy.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm such a mess right now. I'm, like, fanning myself, sweating, thinking about my pork, hoping it's not burning.
It's fine.
Think it's fine?
We'd smell burning.
No, let me check it.
This is really.
Oh, okay. Little carbonation.
Would you grab my water, like a sparkling water from the fridge? Thanks. This is the coziest live chat ever. Or not. I don't watch a lot of live chats.
None of them I've watched have ever seemed this cozy. I will agree with you on that.
My house is pretty cozy.
Yeah.
I like it.
That works.
That's good.
I'm gonna check through my notes really quick and see if I missed anything. Oh. Okay. So I'm gonna try and approach this as tactfully as I can. I had been listening to a few podcasts about Leviathan Wakes, like, in the past. And there was one, I don't remember the name of it, I'm sorry, but they were kind of like feeling awkward about the fact that certain characters, when they're meeting new groups for the first time, they're trying to kind of like check what their like ethnic influences are, like where their parents came from by how they look like. And after I had heard that, I was like, oh, they do kind of do that often. Like, I remember it being a thing with Naomi when Miller first meets her. He's like, I could never even guess, like where her genetic makeup comes from. And in this book, it gets brought up again. And what I kind of like figured out, I guess, like, it's not 100%, this is obviously just my opinion, but in the beginning of the book, Fred notes the bartender has Chinese or Korean ancestry, and so he's running through the math in his head. He's like, okay, so that means that he's a 5th generation belter, because that would have made his parents like come down from like this group. So maybe it's not so much like, oh, like they're interested in what someone's ethnic background is, but possibly like how long a person has been on a certain planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I don't know how I feel about it, but
Do
I
you think there's an implication that
characters keep kind of like thinking about these things.
Do you think there's an implication that immigration to the Bell happened in waves of some sort? Right, there was an initial wave that was perhaps composed mainly of the certain ethnic group, and then there were subsequent waves that possibly, or certain groups were sent or colonized, or different parts of the belt. Kind of. I swear to gosh, there was another science fiction series that was very similar that way. Anyway,
and there's also like their physical, like their physiology is different.
Yeah.
So like that's why they call them the thins.
Or the skinnies.
Like, or there's like all those things where it's like they're tall and skinny because they don't have gravity.
Yeah.
And like, which obviously like they address that throughout the series and whatnot. But like the longer someone, like people being born in space, like even like Anderson Dawes, like his sister had those issues. And that was part of the reason why things were like so jacked up for her. It's not like she could just like go to Earth and get treatment.
Right.
I don't know if she survived.
Yeah.
I was so glad that the authors brought that in also to the world building. I mean, this is something that's been in science fiction for a long time, for decades, right? I mean, I remember reading about it in Larry Niven. He's talking about his Known Space series, that people who were on a certain planet in a different solar system that had higher gravity, they were shorter and stockier and in their build, right, and more muscular for having to deal with that. People in other places with, a third the gravity of native Earth tended to be tall and willowy. I like that they brought that in, and I realized after the adaptation they couldn't keep going with that because of budgetary reasons. They couldn't make that work. But I'm so glad
CGI everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just you blow your budget on CGI, right? But I love that they did it it's in the books, and they carry that through. And there's all these problems with living in an environment that we weren't adapted to, and we didn't evolve in. So that was great.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like whenever they brought those sorts of things up, that it felt like a lot of world building in terms of like understanding what's like how things happened, and like you kind of understand how Mars got colonized by learning about where Alex is from, and learning about his ethnicity. Like we learned about I think it was Dubai and Texas, like being the major like group that ended up moving to Mars. And like you can tell that because of the way that they talk and ethnicity, and it's very cool to get that world building, in my opinion. Like, what's up?
No, I just love how like Martians have Texas drawl. Like that's so funny to me. And like it doesn't matter like what you look like, where your background is from like centuries before. It does not matter. Like everyone's like y'all.
Yeah. They're
so
like
funny.
that sounds cool. We'll use
Like
it.
doesn't matter what their dialect is, because obviously there's like 5 main languages or whatever that they refer to in the book series. But like even like that has a southern drawl. Like that's so funny and like brilliant.
It's one of my favorite reasons why I like Alex so much. Like Alex has that like cowboy southern drawl, and like he flies the Rocinante and he like yee yips and shit, and you're just like, what a fucking cowboy in the wild
We're locked, cocked, and ready to rock.
I love it.
I love that part.
But yeah, I love that it just feels like world building to me. Like it's a lot of understanding where things like where people came from, how long they've been there. Like I love the like how they're thinner, like in on the stations and whatnot. Like I always like as soon as I pick up the book, those details are so awesome to me. Like I just was like, wow, this is they thought of everything, huh? Like it was cool. So yeah, I love that.
And
Well, the
physics
importance of the
too. The physics actually like lines up, which is like what's really awesome about it too. So
There's
people
no
that are,
like turn
actual
on the
scientists-
gravity shields, like none of that, none of that.
People that are like actually like I have friends that are like legitimate scientists, and they're all just like, oh my god, like when you told me to read the sci-fi book, I thought I was gonna be pissed, but like I'm so excited because it's right, like they did it good. Like,
There's
Like
I
they
mean,
talked about the Coriolis effect.
yeah, and they
Like,
showed that
all
in
that
on the adaptation, right? Remember when they're pouring
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
whiskey,
Yeah.
right? And you see the liquid curve because of what would happen.
Good.
So we don't have dogfights in space. I mean, God bless. I love the first Star Wars, but that's just what are you banking against, right?
Yeah.
But instead you get that whole it's like, thrust in a line, flip over, decelerate to slow down, and
Yeah.
So the one concession they made was what
There's one example where there's fire in zero G, and it looks so cool, and I was like, yes, like that tracks, like this makes sense.
Yeah.
Love
Like
that.
the mag boots and like the way that the bullets travel, like they have like little thrusters on the ends of them, and it was like it all makes sense. Like it doesn't feel like it's like super complex, but it's enough that you're like, I don't really need to ask too many more questions. Like it's enough that you're like, okay, that makes sense to me. I get that. Continue.
I've seen people kind of like dog on the series for being like men's adventure books or something, like it was a bad thing or whatever, but I'm like, so what does that mean if I'm a woman and I like that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard for me, obviously, because I'm such a big fan of the books and the TV show. But I think the series offers a lot, like in terms of like all people from all different backgrounds. So like I haven't been a big fan when people like say like this is a show for like dudes, like manly dudes or something, and it's not.
I mean, some of
There's
the
so
most
many
loved,
cool
most powerful
female
characters.
characters.
Yeah, exactly. Are women,
Yeah.
right? And when we get deeper into the series, we can kind of talk about them. But I mean, I'm a fan of
Yeah.
like I started reading science fiction back. Well, I'm old, so but I cut my teeth on some of the classics, right? Robert A. Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, and I was thinking about some of the Heinlein youth novels, right? That were read for like the boys' magazines, and this is all the Horatio Alger story, the young kid who's really smart, outthinks his way out of these problems, but the female characters until you get to later Heinlein where they became these sex objects, right? The female characters were all just the sidekicks. Right, they were the typical damsel in distress, or they were the prize to be won, or whatever it is. And then you fast forward to the Expanse, and it's a whole different ballgame, right? There's literally something for everyone, and it reflects a much more modern sensibility. And I think people who say that, Amber, they're missing the point, right? This isn't about a dude thing. It's not about a feminist woke thing either. It's about what makes us all human. Right at the heart of it all, right? And all the messy parts of it, and the good parts, the bad parts, I don't know what it is, all mixed up together. When you talk about Holden, it's just But that's what we're talking about, right? But that's an excellent point.
For sure.
And like how Naomi, like he's clearly acknowledged, like the whole series, like it's just a staple that Holden's like she's the one that holds it together.
Yeah.
She is the smart one. She knows how to fix the problems. Any issue I've ever had in my life, she knows how to fix it. And even though he's the one that's in the forefront, she does not want to be. She is like the behind the scenes, like making everything work person. And I love that, like they acknowledge that, like constantly.
Yeah, you don't forget it. Yeah.
So I feel like it's pretty cool, like represent. Like you have a bunch of people, but like there's definitely acknowledgement of everyone that does their part.
Yeah.
How easy could it have been for them? I'm not going to name any names, but to make certain characters who are just like bone breaker, tank, like, some large, like strong characters. You could have easily made those men. I mean, easily, but they didn't. And it's like, good, thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah,
Amos, though. I'm glad that Amos. Like, just period.
But Bobby,
God,
right?
damn.
I mean, in a 1-to-1 matchup, no spoilers, for future stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just the series has like some of the best characters that you can really feel like the connections and
Also, like, I love that, like, not everyone has to be sexing it up. Like, we have female and male relationships who are strong and they're not sexual. So, like, we have really good connections between male characters where it's like they can just be friends. Like, they can just like be the best of friends, and the relationships in the books are really good between like all genders. So it works. It's nice.
I like that about Amos too. Is like where he's acknowledged that he doesn't have the best moral compass, and like it hasn't really gone into that yet in the series. But like how he trusts Naomi's judgment
Implicitly.
And now because Naomi trusts Holden, that is why he trusts Holden. And so if Holden makes a call, he's like, well, I don't have the capabilities of making any of these calls because I don't trust my moral compass, so I will trust his. And like I feel like he's already implied that in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So but it goes more into it, and I'm not gonna spoil anything. But like it's fascinating because it's like I like that. Yeah, like he's one of the most complex, fascinating characters.
Yeah.
But it's also like I love that like just the build that we have on him already. Like it's just like you just fall in love with him more in the series. Like he's such a good fucking character, so multifaceted. So
I guess we'll have to do the churn too.
Yeah. And like how often like Amos like really does like in moments of tension like turn to Naomi and just is kind of like looking for like, is this okay? Like, is what I'm doing okay with you? Like, he's not turning to Holden, who's the captain. Like he's looking at Naomi, and I feel as though that like Naomi and Amos's relationship is such a fun one.
Karina points out that great authors create great characters. She said in the chat,
it's
which
nice.
I agree with.
Yeah. I love like when like Holden and Naomi like I missed the chat for the first book, so I'm gonna keep on bringing up stuff for that. But I love when like Holden and Naomi like finally like bang it out, and like Amos is like, yeah, I would have banged her if I could, but like also like I doesn't change anything. Like still buds, like still besties. So
how terrible would the series have been if like that would have been an issue? You know what I mean? Like
it's so awkward.
What I thought was,
I mean, I'll take it if I can get it, but also it's not a priority to me. Like I don't care. Like good for you, bud. Like I love that.
Well then, and let's talk about the flip of the stereotypical. The woman is all about like, oh, it's only about with love and romantic love, and Naomi's like, look, dude,
if you want it, like
let's go for it, but yeah, we don't have to be emotionally committed here, and it was a kind of a nice little turnaround. It said a lot about kind of the preconceived notions that we come into with this, right? It's like we're all thinking, it's like, oh, well, there's got to be a romantic, especially with the woman, right? Because that's what we've always been told through literature and through TV shows, right? And so to have them flip that on one, that's really cool. And then two, it tells you a lot
and
about
it also tracks
Holden
too.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my God, Holden, you're a hot mess. What the hell?
It's like he's like, I have to do everything morally correct, and she's like, why? Like just
it's like, dude, you're exhausted.
Can't handle all of this. Can't do it.
Well, and how she calls him out about it.
I just love it though, because he's just like, so. Like, I am making nothing but moral decisions, like by all these traditional things, and she's just like, bruh, like it's open for business. Let's go. Like it's just so good.
Yeah, it's it's funny how we have these we come into these things with these tropes, right?
Not all.
Yeah. I appreciate
We come into these
that
things
they
with these
just
tropes that
have
we've been
like
taught
on
or
their
we've been
head.
exposed to, and then this series kind of insidiously turns them all on the head, right? Or a lot of them, and we don't even realize it while we're reading it until we're like, oh, cool, that's a really cool moment. It's like, well, why do I think that's a really cool moment? It's because it's subverting this trope that I was
Yeah.
taught
Because
from
we've
the
been
first.
fed, we've been
Right.
fed it for so long.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's expectation, right? It's like, oh, it's romantic love. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. It's like, no, why? And they have
And it doesn't
Naomi.
feel like they like. It doesn't feel like they even like super push it either. Like it's just kind of like, it's just how it is. Like it's
Mhm.
not like pushed into your face. It's very casual and nonchalant. Like
Organic.
yeah, it's super organic. Like it just feels natural for what's going on, and I feel like that's what I've appreciated through the books is just how natural it all feels, and like all of it. It feels natural.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I had written down for the Butcher of Anderson Station. I think there was one thing. Okay. I know like this is something that they have talked about very often on Ty and That Guy, where like it's a theme that always comes up no matter what. Like space can kill you. Space will kill you. Everything is very dangerous. And I like how quickly it came in this short novella versus some of the other books. Because like right off the bat, it was mentioned in Leviathan Wakes when they were attacking Cloth Station, where Holden is like remembering his military training and he's telling himself, okay, 60% of all breachings of an unknown station result in 6 out of 10 soldiers dying. And then in The Butcher of Anderson Station, this comes right up again, where Fred Johnson's team like is going in and he has that same thought. Because they're both Earthers, they both been through the military, so it's something they would have both been trained in. And we get that like right off the bat. So okay, 6 men dead, and he's looking at the dots on the screen and being like, they're humans, but I'm just seeing thoughts. And we've got this like piece right here. So again, like very dangerous stuff. And then we get into Anderson Dawes' story about his sister, how quickly and easily she was killed, just like within seconds. Space will kill you. Then again, we have Marama, the Belter man, whose daughter was, had what was it, hypoxic brain injury, like the whole reason that they were fighting. Like again, like space can't kill you. And I don't think it's been any other book like this novella like drove it home like very quickly and over again. And I like that it does that.
I thought it was interesting too that without throwing it in the reader's face, those little details are the things, right? It's like, well, we couldn't afford to run more oxygen, or we couldn't afford to do this because we're so stretched thin as it is. And so these are the consequences. And for the most part, they just live with them, right? It's like, this is just a lot we're dealt. This is what it means to be out here. And so we just deal with it. But once in a while, they're like, come on. Our kids are already being, are already sick. We're already on the brink, we're already starving, and now you want to cut us back a little bit more, or you want to charge us a little bit more. It's like, it gives you that, you're right. It gives you that sense of what's the last straw. And when that last straw happens, you can kind of completely believe these guys are like,
right.
That's it. That's enough. And we had to do something.
Yeah. At one point, it's like, at what point does this become urgency? And then that's like the culmination of everything happening in this novella, like them taking that stand. And they're like, you know what? This is it. Like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. We're done. We can't do it anymore.
Yeah, and that struggle to try to make people
that's all I got
understand.
Yeah.
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 I thought I thought on that one what it was. I think he said something like you could maybe stretch out 3 days without food, but you can't stretch out 3 extra days without oxygen. So it wasn't like they were asking for anything unreasonable. It's they need oxygen to breathe. So it was just kind of
Urgency,
Yeah.
like immediately.
Yeah.
that's like every catalyst to every revolutionary moment is you take away something that is a basic need. And that's it. That's the big one. You can't breathe, you can't eat, you can't survive. What do you do? Revolution!
That's where we should end it, Tracy.
Oh wow! Is that good? Are we done? Are we wrapping this up?
Aiden's got
I just
something.
wanted to
Oh, you want to?
add that the like seeing the end that Fred sees of the dots on the screen. I thought that was a really interesting perspective to see. Like that's what they see on the other side. Like UNN officers, when they're making these calls, they are seeing this screen. So it's kind of interesting to keep that in mind as the books keep going. That like it just some of the, like Fred kind of even tackles with the whole like part of this isn't even a video, like this isn't a game, this isn't a simulation. I have to remember that these are people. Like every dot that goes away, that's somebody gone. And so like he's kind of wrapping around with that struggle of like understanding that. And so I'm sure that there are other UNN officers throughout the fleets that go through the same issues and like probably make very similar calls where that happens, you know? So I just appreciate that perspective.
Yay! That's a fun one.
Yeah.
It's storming pretty badly.
Oh,
I
is that
think
what
that's
that
a
is?
sign.
Yeah. We'll
Better empty-
drop the screen.
Yep, empty the
Yeah,
bottle.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Say goodbye to everyone.
Say goodbye, Tracy.
Bye, Tracy.
Bye.
Just for you. Just for you.
I get that reference because I'm old. See, I get that.
Bye,
that-
Doug.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Oh, it's like an
Yeah, you too.